Hello everyone. Merry Child Deception Day, Eve before Christmas. Yes, we're just going to do a bit of an unusual stream. I've got things ready. After this, I shall be starting the gammon. I always do gammon on Christmas Eve, and then I've got everything I need in place for the Christmas dinner tomorrow, where I will have to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get it all done. But I thought we'd go through some things. We'll obviously go through questions as people bring them up. We could go through some little Christmas trivia I found. I didn't spend a lot of time finding a lot, so you're going to have to fill in the conversation. But we can start off and punctuate with little bits of political Christmas trivia. We have to be a little bit careful because it is the season for goodwill to all. So discussing politics almost always violates that rule, but never mind, we will try. So let's start on something positive. So we'll start off with America, but I want to move on to some related thing with Britain. But America started it, so we're going to go with that. The turning on of the lights, the Christmas tree lights outside the White House, outside the residency of the, does the gammon vote reform? Boil it. I won't actually be boiling it. I do normally, well, not boil, but braise gammon. I usually cook it in orange juice. And then I make a sauce out of some of the braising liquid out of it. I really like it, but my wife doesn't. So it's actually quite weird. Right, I'll tell you, I'll start off with this, right? This is Christmas related, but not politics related, right? So I'm doing the Christmas dinner tomorrow. I did it a couple of years ago as well. But for most of the time when I've been living with my now wife, the eldest stepdaughter did the Christmas dinner, right? Now, I just thought it's because she wanted to do it. But then, so since I've been diagnosed with autism, my wife started to sort of realise that maybe she needs to be a bit more explicitly clear with me about certain things, that I don't do subtlety, which I thought I'd explained to her in the first place, right? So it turns out the reason they didn't want me cooking Christmas dinners in the past is because they don't like the amount of salt. I don't put much salt in, by the way. I don't, but it's too much for them. I've got one of these families. Do you know these families that only like really bland food? It's like, bloody hell, how am I supposed to put flavour into it? So now she feels that she can tell me things without offending me, which I don't know how it took her this long. She just said, don't put salt in stuff. So I'm allowed to cook it as long as I don't put salt in anything. But there we go. Well done for not wearing your I told you so jumper. You said the COVID inquiry would end Bozo's chances of comeback. Well done. Well, I mean, it was utterly ridiculous anyway. He hasn't definitely ruled out coming back though yet, has he? He won't. It's too difficult. It's too difficult for him to come back. But anyway, Christmas trivia. Let's see if we can get this one. This is a two-part one. No, it's a three-part one technically. So a very, very, very long time ago, we took a long time to catch up, but a very, very long time ago, the US presidents started doing a big thing where they have this national Christmas tree outside the White House, and they turn on the lights, right? So which was the first US president to do that? Or at least guess roughly the decade. I'll let you guess the decade. So you don't do the cheating where you look at it. You're only cheating yourself. That's the teacher phrase. If you look it up on Google, you're only cheating yourself. But if anyone does know who the first US president to do that was, because every president's done it since, I think. Who was the first US president to do that, or in roughly what decade it began? A long time ago. Then you get bonus points that win you nothing. Oh, 1930 is not far off. It's not the 60s with JFK, no. Before then, Nixon would have been even later. It's before Nixon, long before Nixon. Do have a Nixon Christmas thing. Truman's earlier, FDR, closer, FDR, not them. It's actually someone who's not that famous as a president. They're not stunningly famous. It was the 1920s. That's when most electrification happened. But it wasn't Hoover, no. Coleridge, there you go. Got there in the end. It was, yes, 1923. Okay, so that's been going on a long time. That's like 100 years that's been going on. We took a much longer amount of time to catch up, even though we had adopted the Christmas tree by then. Of course, we know that's Prince Albert who brought it across from Germany. It's not, a couple of people said Garfield. It wasn't Garfield either. But we did eventually catch up long time later. So second part to this three-part thing is who was the first British Prime Minister to begin the tradition in Britain of turning on Christmas tree lights on a Christmas tree outside 10 Downing Street. Much more recently. It's not super recent, but it's much more recent. It wasn't the cat, no. Cats and Christmas trees, as anyone who's had a cat and a Christmas tree in close proximity knows, do not mix well. Really don't mix well at all. Fun fact, Tolkien had a version of Yule for Middle-earth based largely on the Anglo-Saxon celebration. Yes, they have it in the Lord of the Rings online game, which I haven't gone on. It wasn't Wilson or Heath. It was Thatcher, yes, John's got it. It was Margaret Thatcher that introduced it. Now, third part to the question, you should all get this one. So since Margaret Thatcher, it's not a stunning long time ago, not as long ago as America. It took a long time for us to do it. But nonetheless, we've had a few prime ministers since then. And prime ministers have followed that tradition of turning on the Christmas tree lights outside Downing Street ever since, or outside 10 Downing Street, specifically in Downing Street ever since. Who's the only prime minister since that has not done this? A litter of 6 kittens is especially disastrous. I suppose it would be. But yeah, Christmas trees. Actually, I'll tell you what, while you're thinking of that one, where's my Discord? Someone put up their solution. So I'm in a Discord group, a gaming group, that's got a few cat lovers in it. And one of them has a solution to protect their tree. Yeah, there you go. It's Liz Truss, you see. Trick question, really. It is Liz Truss because, of course, she wasn't Prime Minister at Christmas. Right, I'll just show you this. So this is, I don't know whether this works, by the way. I'm not going to guarantee this works just because someone's put a picture of it up. But this is a cat lover in a gaming group I'm in, who assures us that this works for them. So apparently putting tangerines or satsumas around the tree, or maybe it's just this particular cat doesn't like the smell. Maybe it's like, you know, it's like conkers and spiders. Spiders don't like conkers apparently, so you put conkers in places where spiders might get in. So it may well. Truss lit up a lettuce. Yes, the lettuce did the lights that year. But yeah, I don't know whether it just works for that cat or whether it would work for cats in general. Does anyone know? Any cat lovers out there know if they don't like citrusy smells? In which case, that's genius. In fact, Liga Owned, has just said cats don't like smell of citrus. There we go then. So that, if you have a tree and you have a cat and you worry each year about how you're going to deal with this scenario, then that's what you do. You just put satsumas around it. I've known dogs to be antagonistic to Christmas trees too. Okay, I've never known that. And I have had dogs and I've known dogs with other people. I've never actually known a dog do any damage to a Christmas tree. But there, I suppose you can't rule it all out. Some dogs are particularly destructive, I guess. My cat doesn't give a hoot about the tree. Okay, it's unusual then. I think most. I'm not a cat lover myself, even though there's like 3 cats in the household, but they're nothing to do with me. But I have known people with cats, and they always there always has to be something that has to happen to try it, because you can't like just put it somewhere that they can't get it. You can do that with a dog, particularly a small terrier. You could just elevate it or something, you'd probably be fine. But with a cat, that doesn't really work. You have to watch it as well that they don't chew the cable. So they will sometimes say, don't have the Christmas tree lights on in a room that the cat can get into if you're not there to observe its behaviour. I mean, one friend I used to have who had cats had a water pistol to keep it away. And a strategy I adopted for the pugs we have here. So if they misbehave, they get a warning, and then if they don't behave, they get the water gun. I haven't had to use it for a while though, because you know it works really well for training them. But anyway, Arachnophobia in the UK is stupid. We have zero dangerous spiders in the island. Well, yeah, but the thing about arachnophobia, my wife has arachnophobia. The thing about arachnophobia is it's a phobia. So it's not rational. You are right. They're not. You could get a little bit of a nasty bite at worst, and you probably don't get that, particularly from the sort of spiders that come in from the cold into the house. But nonetheless, the thing about phobias is they are irrational. Can't really help them. But there we go. Right. Where's my next one? Where was the... Hold on. I said there was a Nixon one somewhere. Let us have a look then. Let's try and find that. Where is it? Oh, yes. So, I thought black widows were present in the UK. Well, they're not supposed to be. I mean, I suppose there's always a risk with global trade that something... I mean, like tarantulas famously sometimes sneak into banana crates, don't they? So... I suppose there could always be an argument that maybe a very dangerous species hops a ride, but then, you know, hopefully you'd think they'd die. The answer is not Nixon. The question is Nixon. The question is Nixon. So in 1970, President Richard Nixon apparently was visiting the Lincoln Memorial specifically to talk with protesting students, right? And it didn't turn nasty as far as I can tell, but it wasn't successful. Nixon was not effective at like winning these people over. So what Christmas themed activity did he suggest for them? The protesters at the Lincoln Memorial. He sort of suggested, look, you're not really doing any good here, mates. Why don't you do this Christmas related activity? Apparently it drew no small amount of ridicule for the suggestion. John said, I'm always careful of picking up loose bananas. I've never really feared it myself, but it is sort of a thing. I mean, tarantulas and bananas go together. Carol singing. No, he didn't suggest they went carol singing, no. If anything, that would... I mean, there's not a lot of difference in carol singing and protesting anyway, is there? Go to Vietnam. No, that's not... There's not... It was... Obviously, the protests were about Vietnam, but that's not Christmas themed. Admittedly, in Vietnam, they did also light a lot of trees up, but that wasn't really in a very festive way. So I don't think there's anything particularly festive about Vietnam. Wanga Pagan confirming there, black widows have no established population. But no, as I say, we don't have anything. We don't even snakes. Deciding tree. What's the deciding tree? We don't even snake. We have like some adders, but even there, and you would probably not. I don't think I've ever come across one. Used to work in a supermarket. We sometimes found weird-looking spiders in the boxes when putting them out. Yeah, that might have been a. Hopefully you didn't put the spiders out, just the bananas. Game of Monopoly. Now, what's Christmas about Monopoly? I mean, there might well be a festive game of Monopoly somewhere in the world, but I don't think. And I know some people may play board games when they're bored. Pass the pass. I don't think. No. It wasn't a game. He didn't suggest a game. Ryan Payne then saying we have false widows, so spiders presumably that look like black widows but are not otherwise venomous. Charity work, no, wasn't charity work. Again, charities are obviously big. Decorating Lincoln with lights. No, I don't think he would have encouraged them to clamber on the memorial itself. That would have been a very odd instruction for a president to have given. They're saying we've got grass snakes in our garden. They're massive. Yeah, I've never seen one in the wild. I've never seen a snake in this country in the wild. I know they exist. I've never actually seen one. We've killed all the dangerous wildlife and made it into hats. Well, not this hat, I'll just emphasise, by the way, which was presumably made in China. Everything else is. I don't know where's the thing. Where does it tell me where it was made? Yeah, of course it was. Made in China. Of course it was. Like everything else. So this one was not made out of an animal. Roast chestnuts. No, I think that's more of a thing here. Do they do that in America? Or maybe they do it in America as well. Do they have chestnuts in America? Do they roast them at Christmas? I read this 3 weeks ago and promptly forgot, so annoying. Did he tell them to go wassailing? No, but we'll go through it now because I'm not sure you're going to get it. He told them to go and look at the Christmas trees. He didn't tell them to put on a silly Christmas hat. Now, they may have had Christmas hats on. I don't actually know, but he told them to go and look at the Christmas trees, which didn't really work. If we're going to be completely honest, it's a bit like the notion of John Lennon thinking that he would get people to stop wars because he had a lion. It didn't really work. But anyway, dress up my Jack Russell as a spider at Halloween scares the crap out of kids, thinks it's brilliant. Yeah, I've seen those things in the pet store, the spidery costumes. I don't think we could get our pugs into them. Pugs are a funny shape. It's quite difficult to get stuff like that. And they would probably just eat the legs anyway. Their usual instinct when you present them with anything is to eat it. Was it audio tape each other's conversations? We get adders down this way. Me ex-stepdad got bit by one. His arm swelled up like a balloon. Ooh, no, nasty. Local commons have adders and grass snakes. See them quite often in the warmer months, yeah. Oh, like the song Chestnuts Roasting on Open Fire. Yeah, but where did that come from, though? Oh, no, that is American, isn't it? Oh, no, you're right. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Okay, maybe they do. I didn't even know if they had chestnuts in America. But it wasn't to go and roast chestnuts either. Apart from anything else, the last thing he would want them to do is to harvest chestnuts because they're quite hard. They could throw them at him. It might be asking for trouble. Now, I am going to say, so when you say, was it eating mince pies? I'm quite sure they don't have mince pies in America because I remember that episode of Friends where Rachel didn't understand that mince pies aren't made of meat, which is understandable if you're not used to the concept of a mince pie. When you might imagine that we were just weird and have mince meat pies for Christmas as a dessert. We don't. It's entirely plant-based, but well, I say that it's not animal anyway. It's not meat. But I am quite sure they may import some. I don't know. I'm not going to say there's no mince pies, but it's not a thing in America, is it? The American version of the song has a comma in the lyrics. Was hoping Phil would do some Christmas cracker jokes. Deadpan delivery would be good. Very possibly. I don't really know any. Well, let's look some up then. Go on. We'll try. My wife has made the Christmas crackers this year, so she was in charge of the jokes. Not that I am ever in charge of the jokes. They don't have that either, do they, in America? They don't have Christmas cracker jokes. They don't have penguins, other than the ones they import. Penguins are good. They have jokes on the penguin, the chocolate biscuits. Actually, are they still chocolate biscuits? Clubs aren't chocolate biscuits anymore because the chocolate's too expensive. I'm not sure if penguins went the same way. But they still have... Oh, here we go. Right, let's have a look at this. Hold on. Right, okay. Fine. No, that's rubbish. That's rubbish. These are rubbish. What's going on? What? Oh, okay, we'll do this one. This one's all right. Why was the snowman rummaging in a bag of carrots? They put tariffs on penguins. They put tariffs on everything, didn't they? Yeah, mince pies are too Moorish, yeah. I used to make them myself. We've got some, 2 different types, but I haven't gone loads this time. In fact, it's quite weird. We've deliberately, because my wife's diabetic now and I'm losing weight, so we've deliberately not got loads of stuff in this Christmas, like in terms of sweet stuff. And yet we've still ended up with loads. And do you know why? Because I got some, my wife's got some, other people have got some, and it's like all of a sudden we've got loads. Should have just left it to me. He was nosy. Ooh, close, but no, not quite. So why was the snowman rummaging in a bag of carrots? There we go. Vom Grady's got it. He was picking his nose. He was picking his nose, you see. I'm not sure about this one. What do fish sing at Christmas? We'll ignore the fact that fish don't sing for now. What do fish sing at Christmas? Oh, Wanga Pagan saying, I've got 3 favourite Christmas songs. A Winter's Tale by Queen, Christmas Time, The Darkness, and Christmas, Corey Taylor, lead singer of Slipknot. I don't know that I do have a favourite Christmas song, other than if I was to have to pick one, I would have to go with Slade's Merry Christmas Everybody, or Everyone, whatever it is. I don't even know the title of it. But it is the happiest Christmas song. Oh, Ivan, Super Chat, thank you very much. Merry Christmas, Phil. Thanks for continuing to hold the toys and reform to account. Well, I will attempt to do so. Hopefully the public start holding them to account. Scales, no. I like the thinking, but no. So what do fish sing at Christmas? It's not scales. That's a good thought, though. Good thought. It's probably a better answer than the actual answer. A whale in a manger. Oh, that's not a fish. But no. Forever blowing bubbles. Oh, that would be a good... Actually, most of these answers are better than the actual one. You're going to be so disappointed. But it's not that either. Vom Grady has got it again. I think Vom Grady writes Christmas jokes for a living. It is indeed Christmas corals. Wham's Last Christmas to Go. See, the thing, right, okay, so... Ironically, we were listening to some Christmas music this morning. We asked Alexa to put on some... Oh, shit. No, she hasn't sparked up. To put on some Christmas music, right? And, it occurs to us, they're mostly miserable. And I know some people are, and, Christmas is one of those terrible times of the year in that, because you're supposed to be really happy and celebrating, a lot of people do. But because of it, some people who have a pretty terrible life, it's more miserable. Or because you've got corals aren't fish either, but fish swim around corals though. Some people don't have a great time at Christmas. So I get how there are going to be some Christmas songs that are really miserable. But a lot of the most famous ones are deeply depressing, aren't they? Elvis Presley did 2 really miserable ones. One of the ones that's mostly held up as like the most popular Christmas song is like Fairy Tale in New York, which sounds lovely, but of course the lyrics are awful. So there's a lot. There's a lot there. YouGov's Labour cutting reform down to 5% lead. I saw that. Yeah, Christmas present for Stam. Well, again, it needs to carry on after Christmas as well. He may not have much more time to turn it around. And the thing I think about that is, yes, the lead has now been cut, and it is sort of looking like a bit of a trend. But for Labour to get back in the lead, first of all, isn't enough in itself, but that would do for now. And it's... I just look at it and I think to myself, maybe some of the scandals with Farage are the reason for it, but that alone is not going to cause Reform UK to crash in the polls. You also need Labour. Like I keep saying, when we're talking about a change of government, it's not enough for the opposition to be appealing. The government has to fail. So to keep the government in place, if that's what you want, it's not enough for the opposition to look more appealing. The government have to be unappealing. So if you want to keep the government in place, you need the government to be more appealing. And I still don't think a lot of people really know what the government are doing that's popular. R.I.P. Chris Rea. Yeah, that was a bit of a sad one, that was, wasn't it? Excuse me. At just the time that people might be driving home for Christmas if they're on the road a lot. Yeah, we found out he dies. My dog decided to shed lost about the weight of several pugs. So one of our pugs, Walter, the male one, he has a double coat. So he sheds all the time. So basically, whenever it goes from either being warm to cold or cold to warm, he just sheds loads. And because it very frequently does that, I mean, the changeable British weather, he sheds all the time. The room we keep them in is full of hair. My birthday is the 31st of this month. That's bad luck. So this time of year is better for me than many others. Yule and birthday present. Well, you say that, isn't it? It means you get it all at the same time of year. I had a friend who his birthday's at the beginning of December, but both of his siblings also, there's like three of them, and they all have their birthdays round about Christmas. So everything Christmas and then nothing. Actually, an ex of mine, her mum used to hate Christmas because she was born round about Christmas Day. I think it might have been Boxing Day. Came from a poor family, so she never actually got any birthday cake. It was just their birthday cake was Christmas cake, right? Step into Christmas by Elton John's upbeat. Yeah, there are some nice Christmas songs as well, but there's an awful lot of really miserable ones. And I don't. Yeah. How does Farage explain his loyalty to Trump with so much coming out now? Well, I just hope that sticks to him as well. I just hope that, I mean, again, there will be the very tribal ones who believe the Department of Justice when they're saying, actually, we're releasing this stuff because we have to, but a lot of it is false. We've already gone through it. We've proven it's false, even though they haven't. Some of it will be false. I mean, they are just allegations at the end of the day. Remember, the injustice here was that these allegations were not investigated. So none of them are proven, are they? That's the problem. That's one of the injustices of the Epstein files. These allegations were made and officially recorded and not pursued. They were going to be pursued with Jeffrey Epstein, admittedly. But once he killed himself or, otherwise ceased to exist, there was no follow-up. There was no follow-up with the allegations with anyone else, was there? So, that's the terrible thing. So it is entirely possible that some of the allegations are not true, but they haven't been investigated. But yeah, there will be those ultra tribal ones who won't believe it. Trump says, "Oh, this is not," or get this, trying to balance it. The Department of Justice will say, "Oh, well, these are actually false." And they go, "Oh, they're false. Okay, well, it's the FBI. They've checked it out, right?" But what about the others? Yeah, what about the others? So yeah, I agree. It will be arguably, as next year goes on, it will arguably be very difficult for Farage but he can't do otherwise. He's stuck. He's nailed his colours to Trump's mast, which is an awful image, but there you go. Ivan there, another super chat. Thank you very much. He says, what are your views on the watering down of farmers' inheritance tax? So the original version was bad. I don't think this solves the problem. I don't even think it makes it better. My attitude at the time, I said so at the time, is there's two problems with the policy that Rachel Reeves has. First of all, you're clobbering genuine generational farmers. And they're not all as poor as they claim they are, right? I've lived amongst them. But it doesn't matter. They are still producing food, and that's really important. And we shouldn't dissuade them from producing food. And we do know that producing food in this country is not entirely for a lot of farmers because we don't farm efficiently. And maybe we should have more effort to farm more efficiently. But nonetheless, the fact of the matter is we don't produce enough of our own food. We shouldn't dissuade it. Taxes dissuade the activity you're taxing. So inheritance tax on a farm is dissuading people from passing their farm on to their children who will then take up the farming, right? It might force them to sell some of the land. So I didn't think that should happen. But at the same time, the people, the fake farmers, the rich people who buy a farm, they're still getting a tax break out of this because it's only 20%. Instead of 40%. So what I said at the time is I want it to be 40%, and I said at the time, France can tell the difference between a real farmer and a fake farmer. And there's lots of ways to do it. Like one way you could do it is say, where does most of your income come from? Like if 90% of your income comes from your farm, you're a real farmer. If not, you're not. Put it that way, right? That's how I would check it. Your income, where does it come from? Over a period of time, not just in the year you die or something, right? But if that's too difficult, then there's other ways to look at it as well. But I'm not a tax expert. Actual tax experts came up with a solution. They just said, have it apply when you sell the land. Well, that would work as well. Because genuine generational farmers, they pass it on to their kids. If their kids don't want to go into farming and they sell it, well, they should be hit anyway because they're not going to be using the land for farming. But if they're going to use the land for farming, they're not selling it, right? So that means they won't be liable. Whereas if it's someone who's just passing it on to their kids as a tax break, as soon as they decide to sell it, they are due the 40%. And it could be in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, doesn't matter. They can hold on to it, doesn't matter. As soon as they sell it, 40%, please. And that will avoid people buying, because I have two problems with it. First of all, it's letting people, rich people, dodge tax, right? And the second problem I have with it is they're buying land that is suitable for farming, but they're not doing much farming on it. They're obviously having to do some to get it to qualify as a farm, but they're not necessarily using it to its optimum value, right? So that's what I would have wanted. So all Rachel Reeves has done here is protect some of those generational farmers, but she's also protecting some people who are buying land as a tax dodge. So I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think it's the right solution. Your hat is now acceptably level. It is, isn't it? Maybe. It is slightly too big for me, but you know. John, they're saying, last week I went to Ypres in Belgium, visited the site where there was the 1914 Christmas truce football match took place, has a memorial now. Yes, that's a good one. That's a good Christmas one. Well, I mean, this will be an easy one. This will be an easy one. But we all know there was a Christmas truce in 1914. We know there was a football match. We also know that officers went off, British and German officers went off to smoke cigars and drink each other's health in some way. They would have been court-martialed if they'd have been caught, but you know, it was all a bit of bon homie. What was the carol that arguably kicked it off, or reportedly kicked it off? What were they singing that arguably sort of caused it all to kick off? But I think this will be an easy one. I think you'll all get this. Would it be better if everyone got a small celebration on their actual birthday, but then everyone has a proper celebration on the same day each year, maybe in May or June for nice but not hot weather? What, we should all have a royal birthday? Stille Nacht, there we go. That's what it was, yes. Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht. I used to know all the words to it. I don't anymore. Best part about having a birthday around Christmas is that you've likely never had school or work on the day. There is that. There is that. But I don't know that that's a big deal, because you get to see your friends on your birthday then as well, don't you? It wasn't lonely this Christmas. That was one of those miserable Elvis Presley songs, wasn't it? That was sometime after the First World War. Oh, just found out that my nephew is 21 today. Also watch your channel, Phil. Good luck. Well, it's very unusual, lad. Let me have a look here. I don't have many of that age group in it. Let me just double check. Virtually none. Within the age bracket of 18 to 24-year-olds, I have 1.5% of my viewers. Next to no 13 to 17-year-olds, but that's probably just as well. Because I'm not rude, but I sometimes swear. Merry Christmas to you too, Nick. My birthday is the end of January. No one ever comes out for it. Everyone is skint. This is the thing about January. Yes, everyone's spent up then. So yeah, that's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. But then in December, surely everyone is also spending as well. So wasn't it by Mud? Oh, was it Mud? Okay, maybe I'm just blaming Elvis for no reason. He did do a miserable Christmas song though, didn't he? If you'd worn that jumper to my old local, you'd have won a prize for the worst Christmas jumper competition. What do you mean? This is brilliant. It hasn't got flashing lights. I used to have one that had flashing lights, but it broke. Most things break, so it has fake lights just on it. This is a really good Christmas jumper. What about it? It's got reindeer and everything. Specifically, like Rudolph's. My friend's wife loved Christmas. At a funeral, we had carols instead of hymns. Was heartwarming. Yes, well, that's what you do, isn't it? It is quite usual for someone who really likes particular types of music to have that music, isn't it? Anyway, where were we with these rubbish Christmas jokes? Right, let's have a look at that. Ooh. What do you call a greedy elf? Someone said Blue Christmas. Yeah, that was Elvis's, wasn't it? Crap, having a birthday in January, everyone is skint from Christmas and New Year. See, I have mine in May. So I'm sort of central. It means I'm a summer child. It means I didn't get as much time to develop before I had to go to school. But I seem to be all right anyway. My parents taught me to read, so it's fine. Do I think Trump will be in power next Christmas? Yeah, I think the limiting factor with Trump, because he won't be impeached. So the limiting, oh, you're very good there. Elfish, yes, very good. The limiting factor with Trump is likely to be his brain. I mean, you know, we know he's suffering from serious decline. It is entirely possible that there comes a point where he doesn't just have a few bad hours every now and then or falls asleep in a meeting. There will come a point where he's incoherent, and I mean more so than usual, to the point where they can't even deny it. That if he's not going to be in power next year, it will be that. I don't really see any other route to it. So in our household, there's way younger than 18 watching your channel. Ooh, close their ears. Tomorrow. I do accidentally swear in my Christmas video tomorrow. I could have cut it out, but I thought not. Okay, this one's all right. I don't mind this one. Who hides in a bakery at Christmas? Who hides in a bakery at Christmas? How many maggots have resigned over the baby dispatching claim? Well, I haven't seen much about comeback on that. But I'll tell you something. I will tell you something that is Christmas themed to do with the Epstein files. Is some people thinking that there's, you know, okay, they're bringing all this out now because it's Christmas and people won't notice. It's like they will notice. Because Christmas, and it's known, by the way, this is not just me like speculating. You do sometimes find interesting changes in the polling after Christmas, and it's always put down to Christmas. Oh, you're close there with mince shy. Not quite. But at Christmas, you've got a load of people jammed together who don't really like talking to one another. Otherwise, they do it all the year round. And some do. But a lot of people, it's an obligation to like get together with the family for some people. So they've got to find something to talk about, and they talk about whatever's in the news. So this Christmas, there's going to be a lot of families talking to each other. And it only takes one person on that table to talk about something that they have seen reported that the other peoples haven't seen reported. And there we go. Mince spies. Yes, Business Cat's got it. Mince spies. Yes. Oh, another super chat. Thank you very much from Frank. There was no message on it now. I hope Trump has a terrible Christmas, the worst. Yes, I strongly suspect he won't. But maybe next Christmas won't be too hot for him. Envious your computer enabled you to produce ligatured letters. All right. And yes, this is, so for those talking about, have you heard about Trump's latest act of debauchery? Well, in terms of the reveal, but it's no surprise, is it? No surprise. Because we know, going way back, Republicans, or these high and mighty so-called Christian Republicans, are constantly having adulterous affairs with mistresses and then forcing them to get abortions. So why should it be any surprise that the people that Trump raped, that he would be forcing them to get abortions as well? Or, you know, in one particular allegation case, worse than that even, worse than that. I've already fallen out with my family over politics this Christmas. Oh, that's not a bad outcome if you like being alone at Christmas. I say Polanski might reset Labour's agenda next year. What's wrong with Labour's agenda? Why would they reset the agenda? And Polanski won't force Labour to do anything other than potentially lose. Like, again, people completely misunderstand the difference between what Polanski's trying to do and what Farage tried to do, right? Farage didn't force the Conservatives and to a lesser extent Labour to adopt some of his lines because he presented them. He did it by getting the public to agree with it. Polanski's not doing that. Polanski is only talking to people who already agree with him. In fact, Polanski isn't even persuading anyone of anything. We've got to remember, Polanski at the moment, what do we associate with Polanski? Oh, socially progressive, tax the rich, blah, 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 all the usual points. But he himself was not at all progressive, economically or socially, just a few years ago, was he? Pro-austerity. So Polanski isn't trying to persuade anyone of anything. He's just adopting the lines that people already have. So he's only appealing to those same people. So he'll do nothing other than help reform UK. By next Christmas, the Democratic Party will have taken the Senate. Oh, I'm not sure about that. We'll see. And the House of Representatives might be more. Again, I don't want to get too excited. People got too excited about Kamala Harris winning last year. I want to wait and see. We know that they're going to attempt shenanigans. We know that Trump has no respect for democracy. Now, I would argue that for a very long time, democracy has not been respected in America anyway. People been taken off electoral rolls, things like that. There's been, it's not just that there isn't a responsibility on the part of the state to make sure that people are, registered to vote. They've actively worked against the idea of certain people voting. So I don't think there's been much respect for democracy in America for a while. But Trump has none at all. None at all. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he's too stupid to do anything. The House of Representatives getting flipped over is possible. The Senate is possible, but much trickier. But if it does, then that will be interesting. Thought Melania only turns up in public if she's paid to do so. Yeah, with a contract stipulating that she's allowed to roll her eyes, because she does that every time. How much does Santa's sleigh cost? Nothing, it's on the house. It's very good. Except these days, that won't really work too well. We don't have chimneys. So we've now got to persuade kids on Child Deception Day he's got to crawl through the keyhole and then deposit these presents, which also have to squeeze through the keyhole, unless he opens the window. Maybe he just squeezes through the keyhole or the letterbox and then opens the window and then gets Rudolph to pass him the presents. Polanski ruined Traitors for me when he spoilt the ending on the last leg. I won't be voting for him. Okay, even I would say it's a bit hard. I mean, I won't be anyway, because he won't be standing in my constituency and I wouldn't either. But that's probably a bit of a harsh reason. The fact they have a system even worse than first past the post, many are disenfranchised simply because there's only two parties. Well, yeah, and yeah, as you say, the presidential election is utterly insane in that it's a binary choice. How is it just not? And I know the historical reason, by the way. So this is a rhetorical question in a sense. But how is it just not who wins the popular vote? And it should be. And I don't care about the historical reasons with rural areas. It's not. It doesn't help. Will your party disband next year? No, there's no reason for them to disband. They exist purely to help reform UK into power. They are. I cannot say it enough. They're a revenge party. That's what they exist for. They're a revenge party. They exist to screw Labour over. They know they don't need any policies. They don't need a manifesto. They don't need any sense of unity. They don't need anything. They just need candidates. If they present candidates at the next general election, they will take some votes, and that will help reform UK into power. Now, what happens then? Do some of them just want to be able to say, we did that? Or do they imagine in their warped thinking that if Labour lose and Reform come in, then it'll be the Tories have failed, Labour have failed, Reform UK have failed, and they think that some some extreme left-wing party will somehow be able to come to power with absolutely zero media support. You know, it's depressing enough that it is possible that a very, very right, an extreme right-wing government can come to power, because that shouldn't be possible, really. It is possible because of excessive media bombardment of people's perceptions, including social media. But there's absolutely no reason. Your party exists as a revenge party. That's what it exists for. Are they going to be, no matter what they do in the next few years, are they going to be capable of taking votes off Labour? Yes, so they'll carry on. There's plenty of poor people giving them money. They're fleecing poor people. As long as they've got enough money to put up candidates in the next election, they'll find candidates. They'll not, and they won't care. They'll be like Reform UK. They won't do background checks or anything. They'll just say, if you agree with us, you can do that. Changing the subject, spent most of December out collecting for the Salvation Army Christmas appeal. Despite tough times, collected £5,500. Well done. Yeah, round here, what they're doing is quite nice. There's a local like cafe type thing which is opening for a few hours on Christmas Day for people who are, because there's quite a fair few older people around here, for people who are alone, and there's been quite a few people getting donations for gifts and wrapping them up so that everyone can have a little gift when they go along as well. On Christmas Eve, a Tory puts out sherry and mince pies and a bill for the cost. Why does Corbyn want the far right to win? It's because his ego. There's a couple of reasons. Obviously, I don't know exactly. Either it's just his ego and he's just satisfied if he can stop Labour winning and he doesn't care about who wins in their place. Or he imagines, like I said, I think some of them seem to imagine, they've looked at Reform UK and they think, well, if they can do that, we can do it. Completely misunderstanding that Reform UK get a lot of free publicity in the mainstream media and the social media. That the extreme left, although there are some largest channels on the extreme left who also give them a lot of publicity, then it's nothing like on the same scale. Nothing like on the same scale. So, yeah, they just imagine. So they imagine, well, the Conservatives aren't going to recover for a long time, right? So if we can get Labour out now, then Labour will be seen to have failed because all of the stuff Labour are doing, it will be trashed. It will be instantly trashed. Even the ban on fox hunting, right, that's now coming. That's coming. That's scheduled to come in 2030, right? Well, if Reform UK come in, it won't be coming at all because they'll have a year to repeal it. They'll just repeal it. It'll be gone, be finished, done. So then, and they know that Reform UK will fail. They know Reform UK will fail. So they'll think to themselves, so in 2034, right, we can say, oh, Conservatives have failed, Labour have failed, Reform UK have failed, you may as well try us, right? But it won't work. It won't work. So they could easily win Ilford North, Wedge Streeting. Not necessarily, just because they nearly got it last time. Don't imagine it would be as easy this time. So they won't exist by 2029, in my opinion. They've already been break-offs, attempted break-offs. See Beth Winter randomly forming a separate party for a week. Yeah, but that's just the nature of the beast. They've always been like that. They've always been like that. At the end of the day, as long as Jeremy Corbyn's alive, the Your Party can exist. Whether it does, I mean, he might get a flash of conscience at some point. He used to have a conscience. He used to have some principles. So maybe he'll get another flash of them. But, you know, I strongly suspect not. Will Kemi Badenoch still be Tory leader this time next year? So, not long ago, I would have said not a chance. I would have said she'd be going sometime this summer. However, it's all relative, isn't it? It's all relative. The Tories desperately don't want to keep changing leaders. If Starmer goes, there'd be no point in getting rid of Badenoch at the same time. So if Starmer goes, that'll be Labour in chaos. The Conservatives will sit tight. If Reform UK are struggling under the scandals, they may keep her for a bit longer. So I'm now not as certain as I was. I was absolutely... Under normal circumstances, you know, after another disastrous local election campaign, as well as Seneth and Holyrood campaign, it would be time to get rid of Badenoch. but everything, political parties don't exist in a vacuum. They exist side by side with others. If Reform UK and Labour are struggling, the Conservatives might just accidentally profit. Like, I mean, let me just put up the latest polling again. So, in fact, no, I'll put it on the screen. This is the key bit. So the Conservatives, this is just within a week. This is 8 days difference. So 14th and 15th of December. No, it's actually 1 week. Sorry, it's not even 8 days. It's literally 1 week. 21st and 22nd of December, right? So in a 1 week period, the Conservatives gained 2 points. Labour gained 2 points. The Lib Dems gained 1 point. Reform UK lost 3 points and the Greens lost 2 points. So that's where that movement is. The SNP technically won as well, but that's neither here nor there. So basically, the Greens and Reform UK have lost within that week. It's just 1 week, remember, don't puff on copium. One poll does not a trend make, right? Conservatives and Labour have each gained 2 points. But why? Now, so because what I would want to know is, so why is that? I don't know. Like, what have Labour done to gain 2 points? Maybe they haven't done anything. Because remember, if people are going to vote, they're going to vote for someone. If people have decided actually the Green Party, they've lost a bit of traction, or the Reform, or maybe it's because Zach Clancy doesn't actually have any policies yet. Maybe they'll come back when he does, or Reform UK because of the scandals. All they've done is switch their vote. They haven't necessarily switched their vote because of anything good the Conservatives or Labour are doing. It may just be because of something that they're dissatisfied with the other two. Who knows? But nonetheless, if the Conservatives are climbing in the polls, why would you get rid of the leader? You'd give her a bit of time. So, and again, the Conservatives desperately don't want to change leader if they can avoid it. But I don't think Kemi Badenoch is improving. I don't think she says she is. I don't think she is. I think she's just she's not taking the initiative on anything. She's not taking any initiative on anything. You say, but selecting target seats requires good polling. They seem to have a lot of trouble staying in reality. Let's hope there's still hope. Selecting seats does. Oh, yeah. Your party will not be able, they will not have the data to know which seats to target, but they won't target any seats. They won't target seats. They'll just put up candidates. It only costs 500 quid to put up a candidate, right? There are extremists throughout in lots of parts of Britain. And the irony is, in a lot of the places where you've got a lot of these Corbynistas, this is where the key battlegrounds will be between Labour and Reform UK. So they will be taking the votes off largely in the areas where Labour are going to have the toughest time. Your party don't need to have a strategy. They just need to exist. I think this last few weeks is the longest period of time I've seen without seeing Farage on the TV for years. Well, we'll see what happens. I didn't know that, by the way, because I don't watch television. We'll see what happens. If things start to get a bit too much for him, including, and I have always kept hoping to myself, that Trump and MAGA will be a liability for Reform UK in a couple of years. Let's just see how it goes. Again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because otherwise, this is the problem with hope, you see. People always think, oh, you need to give people hope, you need to give people hope. There are certain situations in which you do need to give people hope. But in politics, I often see hope as a negative thing, a negative emotion, because it lets people think things are going to get better. Whereas in politics, you need people to work for a better future. Hope is something that you give to someone who has no agency. I think hope can be a positive force for people who have no agency. It's just a way of like stopping you being stressed all the time. But where you have agency, and you always have agency in politics, you have a vote, but beyond that, you also have a voice. So you can talk to other people, preferably without upsetting people. But you can talk to other people. So everyone has agency in politics. So I see hope as bad, because hope is the thing that says you don't need to do anything, things will work out. hope is what you give to people with cancer. It's not what you give to people in politics. I got a point there. I've heard him being scathing about them as well within recent now political strategizing. That's not in response to. I've just read out a random comment and now I can't find what it's in response to. Not sure how the logistics of a Labour Green patch would work. It's impossible. Perhaps more important what Polanski wants out of it. All Polanski needs to do is get the Green Party to be a bigger party after the next election. He'll ideally have more councillors. He'll ideally have more MPs. If he does that, he's a success. He just wants personal success. That's it. And that's how he gets it. If Reform UK come to power, just blame Labour. And Labour will be also responsible. But, he will. It's like the SNP. When the SNP enabled the 2019 general election, knowing full well it would pull us out the EU, and they also knew full well that if that election hadn't have happened, we'd have had another referendum, we'd have stayed in the EU. But the SNP looked at it and they thought to themselves, we can win a shitload of MPs here. Did nothing for them, gets them no power. It's just, it's a moral victory. They sabotaged the country for the sake of that. We've won virtually every, Westminster seat in Scotland. Same thing with the Green Party. They just, and there's a sense in which I sound critical, but remember, my criticism is the electoral system, not the party. At the end of the day, the Green Party have existed for a long time. They're not like the Your Party. The Your Party exists purely to. Actually, I'm going to have a caveat here. I was going to say the Your Party exists purely to stop Labour winning. The party that's just introduced a massive boost to workers' rights, energy security, animal welfare, increases to minimum wage, public sector pay, stuff like that. They exist to kick that party out of government. Whereas the Green Party, actually technically the same thing. But now it is different. They are a different party now. But they were actually set up originally. They were set up by right-wing donors as a way of hiving off left-wing votes. But they are now a left-wing party. So they legitimately exist. The Green Party legitimately exist. And of course, it's their job. It's not their job to stay shit in the greater good. It's their job to win as many votes as possible, as many seats as possible. You can't blame them for it. As long as they do it relatively honestly. So my issue actually with Polanski is he's not relatively honest. But the Green Party, have a right to exist. So we should have an electoral system that doesn't mean that their existence means that we get the opposite of them into power. Because we shouldn't have a situation. People should be allowed to vote for the Green Party if they want to vote for the Green Party. They shouldn't have to think to themselves, but if I vote for the Green Party, I'm enabling a right-wing, racist, fascist group into power. Still not convinced that Labour will lose the next general. Oh, no. There's absolutely no reason to suppose Labour are not doomed at all at this point. There are lots of things that are going to happen that will give them a stronger showing in the polls. But we also have to be realistic here. Labour didn't get a large slice of the vote at the last election. The fact that they were winning it so dominantly is part of the reason for that. They would have actually got more votes if people thought that the result was in the balance. So with the result will probably be in the balance at the next election, that might attract more tactical voting. We will see. But there's lots of things coming online. At the moment, they've done because you have to pay for stuff before you get the benefit of it, right? You have to pay for your Chinese meal before you get to eat it. So that's what Labour have done. They've done the payment for everything. By the election, we should start to see what that payment has bought us. So there are, and also Nigel Farage's and Reform UK should have started to shit the bed more often. I mean, their performance in local government will be very bad. There's all sorts of other things coming up as well. Again, association with Trump, as we've said, is very likely to be... there's a very good chance, anyway, it becomes a liability. Not a single person I know is even aware of the Renters' Rights Bill. No, they were shocked when I told them of the changes. Labour's PR is so bad. It's absolutely awful. Because who's going to tell them? The landlord's not likely to. Some good landlords might, but by and large, they're not going to tell them. No such thing as an honest part. No, that's why I say relatively. relative to normal politics. There is no such thing. And the reason for that is the public do not want honest politicians. Otherwise, they'd vote for them. They say they do, but they don't. They want comforting lies. They can't handle the truth, you might say. Concerns that people are now setting their minds in terms of Starmer. People really don't like. If you don't like someone, would you vote for them? I don't think that's true at all. I think it's entirely that they just don't see that he's delivering. I don't think Starmer has done anything to offend people. He's not done a Partygate or anything. So there have been times in the past when this has happened and it comes back. You imagine that people have these fixed ideas. They really don't. We know people don't have fixed ideas. You can see the way polls change all the time. So Starmer, as long as he doesn't do anything to personally offend people, he's just seen as a failure. That's it. He's just seen as someone who's failing. If he's not, and it's tied to his government, right? That being said, do I think Starmer will still be the Prime Minister at the next election? I mean, at the moment, I would rate it at below 50%. He might not even be Prime Minister next Christmas. Stephen Flynn may get his very mean-spirited Christmas wish. Although it was more of a prediction than a wish. The main way Labour can pull out a win of this mess is by being visibly at work for a stronger social structure in the UK. It's just not visible now. Example, how's the water sewage thing going? Well, that's again, they could get a lot of wins out of what they've been doing with water companies. And they didn't go around telling the public about it. It's mad. Frank says it's now midnight here in Japan, so happy Christmas, everyone. Well, there we go. Are you going out for KFC? That's the traditional thing in Japan, isn't it? Because obviously it's not really a Christian country. So they go for KFC, which is, it's not a bad Christmas. Honesty in politics is always relative. This is why I say I have a term called political honesty. Now, what I mean by political honesty is honesty when you say you're going to do a thing that you intend to do it. It's not about what you say. You cannot be honest in politics. And anyone who thinks that the politician that they approve of is honest, either they're not a prominent politician, and they never will be, because you cannot be honest and make it in politics. You can make it as a backbencher because you can, but other than that, you can't. Or they're deluding you. You're deluded. But there are some politicians, and indeed I would argue most politicians, who when they say they're going to do a thing, mean it. Right? So most politicians are honest about their intentions. They're not necessarily honest about their motivations or what they say. And that's the fault of the public. That's not their fault. It's the fault of the public. But there are some that are honest about what they say they're going to do, what they intend to do. And if they don't do it, it's likely because they tried and then they didn't actually have a plan for it, it turned out. Lots of politicians think they have a plan and it turns out they don't. Not many politicians know how to run a government, which is again why I thought it was a brilliant move of Starmer's to get Sue Gray as chief of staff. If you don't know how to get things done in government, why not get someone who does? And then he got rid of her. Bloody fool. If Labour get trounced across the board in May, does Starmer survive till 2027? It's much less likely. Because there are people clearly angling. Andy Burnham doesn't have a straightforward way back to take part in the leadership contest, though. Wes Streeting, I don't necessarily think that Wes Streeting is actively trying to bring Starmer down, but he is definitely saying things he wouldn't be saying if there wasn't likely to be, or wasn't possible. If there was no question about a leadership contest next year, Wes Streeting wouldn't be coming out with some of the stuff he's coming out with. So I would read Wes Streeting as not intending to bring the leadership down, but intending to be ready if someone else does. That's what I'm saying. Starmer bowed to Tory pressure over Sue Gray. No, he didn't. It wasn't Tory pressure at all. He laughed at Tory pressure. It was bloody McSweeney. Basically, McSweeney's people were whining about, oh, why is she getting paid more than the Prime Minister? It's disgusting, disgusting. And she kept... And instead of getting rid of them, instead of getting rid of those people, instead of saying to them, if you don't like it, there's the door. It's a bomb-proof door. You may need to get someone to open it for you, but you're welcome to piss off out of it. Instead of saying that, he kept the people who have now left him on less than 20% polling. In fact, Labour were down to 18% polling, and that's in YouGov, the good one, right? 18% polling they were on. They were just 1 point ahead of the Greens. Pissing hell. So he kept those people on, the people who've basically... If Starmer does go next year, it's because he kept those people on and got rid of Sue Gray. He should have kept Sue Gray and shown the door to anyone who didn't like her. Am I the only person who doesn't have strong feelings about Starmer? Labour, yes, Starmer, no. Well, I don't. I don't think anyone does. He's got no charisma, right? Why would you? He's also got no natural tribe. That's one of his... It's an advantage and a disadvantage. The fact that he doesn't have a political tribe is beneficial in that it means there's no like outsized influence over him. Only you lose that advantage because McSweeney has a tribe, and because Starmer relies on McSweeney, effectively it's like there is a tribe in 10 Downing Street that has control, but it doesn't benefit Starmer. It will drop Starmer at the drop of a hat. The only saving grace will be if Starmer does go, that McSweeney will have... I don't think anyone that can possibly win will keep McSweeney on. Because if Starmer falls, it's not because of anything Labour are fundamentally doing wrong in government. There are... I'm not saying they're doing everything right. There are certainly some things they've cocked up, and there are other things that they should be doing and they're not doing. And not all of them can be explained by the fact they've got to keep Trump on side. But... you know, it's ultimately because of that bad advice. So why would a replacement leader keep the same bloody advisors on? Everyone knows that Starmer, if he falls, it's because of his bad bloody advice. I don't find Starmer boring. Does that make me boring? Who knows? But I do. I don't find him particularly interesting. But that doesn't matter. I'm not bothered about that. You know, is what he's doing. I'm quite supportive of what he's doing in government by and large. Sunak's masterstroke was to hold the election at exactly the moment Labour lost all momentum with recess, conference season, let the narrative shift. The thing is, though, I'm not sure it may have worked out well for them anyway. Because remember, when they came back after conference season, they went into negative doom and gloom on the economy. But that was a strategy they had before the election. So I actually don't, you know, although I agree with the hypothetical sentiment, I think that their strategy was bad anyway. They had a strategy. We know that this existed before the election now. We didn't know before the election, but we know that it existed before the election. They had a strategy of persuading the public to expect things to get worse before they were going to get better. It's a terrible strategy. Absolutely dreadful. So I don't know. Are we screwed if Starmer goes? Difficult to say. It could be better. It could be worse. It's really honestly difficult to say. If he goes, you have chaos. You have economic chaos. The markets will react negatively. Reform UK and the Conservatives will consolidate. The Green Party will consolidate. Labour will look like they're in utter chaos. There is every single person who could credibly replace... Starmer will fight. He won't just quietly go. He will fight. He said he will fight anyway. Who knows what happens at the time. But if he does, that creates more chaos. If he wins, he's weakened. If he loses and someone else replaces him, everyone else who can possibly replace him has weaknesses. Big weaknesses. It doesn't mean to say that they wouldn't be better, but there is a risk they could be worse. I mean, that's the problem. If it were the case that there was, like when they got rid of Theresa May, the Tories were satisfied that Boris Johnson was a better replacement. They had confidence he could win an election, and he actually did. But they were certainly confident he would be better, and they were right. Not better for the country, obviously, but better for the party. There is no one who fits the bill for Labour. We'd also lose Reeves. That's why there will be instability in the market. So you could end up getting a prime minister who's even worse than Starmer, but they might be better. You could end up getting a chancellor who's worse than Reeves, but they might be better. There's probably not a good chance they will be fundamentally better, because Reeves, I think, is doing most of the things she realistically can, apart from land tax. But yeah, it would be utter chaos, and it may well finish Labour off. We could look back in a couple of years' time and go, yeah, they shouldn't have got rid of him, or we could look back in a couple of years and go, that was actually a good time to get rid of him because it was nice and early in the parliamentary cycle. So Starmer's very resilient. People tend to underestimate him. Yes, but he doesn't have a natural support base. He's a political leader of the like of which there's never been at the top of politics in this country. I thought the whole point of Starmer was to make politics boring again, to make politics less intrusive. Yes, but the lack of intrusivity, which is a key strategy, is not working. They need to be intrusive because Reform UK are being intrusive. Labour needs to be intrusive now. The strategy was perfectly sensible all the way up until they won. It was fine. It absolutely worked. Yes, make politics boring again. Don't be intrusive into people's lives. It worked. It's not working now. They need to be intrusive, not chaotic, but intrusive. The problem is they still think they need to not be bothering people, but people are being bothered anyway. So given that people are being bothered anyway, do you want to be the one bothering them or someone else? You want to be the one bothering them. Would prefer Rayner as PM, but she comes with huge risks. I worry that she's another Neil Kinnock. Neil Kinnock, remember, was a very good political leader. He was sharp. He was organised. He was very focused on political strategy and electoral strategy. But he was a ginger Welshman. And in the end, that's what did it. There was too many people who couldn't bring themselves to vote for him. And it had nothing to do with him or his policies or anything. It was a ginger Welshman. That was it. And that's your worry. Whereas Starmer is just bland, is Mr. Beige. Doesn't inspire anyone, but he doesn't offend anyone either. And the thing about Rayner, think about the sort of people she wins over. But if they're the sort of people who are still going to vote for Corbyn or still going to vote for Zelensky, maybe I should call him Zelensky, Zach Polanski. Zelensky. I've made a new name for him. But that's not actually what I meant. Polanski, sorry. If a lot, because those are the people she appeals to, and she may get some back to Labour, but it may be in the areas that Labour are either going to definitely lose or definitely win anyway. Whereas, but she's, she appeals to a thing where she's going to be fighting over two other parties for those, which then, but is she going to appeal to those ones that Labour are fighting between them and Reform UK, which are the key ones? So Rain needs to go blonde. I don't think it's just that. I actually don't think the hair colour, by the way, is a thing. I think in actual fact, it's she says secretary and stuff like that. I think people are just too snobbish in this country. I think people are just too snobbish. I'm not saying she definitely couldn't win the election. What I'm saying is it'd be a huge risk to get a leader who would be divisive, and she would be divisive. There are lots of people, even within Labour, that I know that don't like Angela Rayner, and they don't really have a good reason for it. They just don't like her. So again, I don't say Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, even Ed Miliband. None of these people would be guaranteed to lose if they replace Starmer. I'm not saying, if any of them won, I wouldn't say, that's it, they're finished. I wouldn't, they might actually be better. But there's no good reason to suppose any of them would be better. They've all got major problems. They've all got things that Starmer doesn't, but they've also all got weaknesses that Starmer doesn't. Ironically, even though I have no time for Andy Burnham, the man's a snake. But ironically, out of those four, Andy Burnham might actually be the safest. If you had to have a replacement, it could well be that Andy Burnham could be. I mean, I'm not in Labour to vote on it, but I would actually say that I'd have to give a good think about it. but I could see myself voting for Burnham if he were in the mix, if he were an MP by then. I could see myself voting for him as the least risky. Snobbery and elitism, yeah, we're full of it in this country. Even amongst the working classes, you have like what you sometimes call reverse snobbery. But I would actually say you've got actual snobbery as well. We've got too much of the doff your cap, tug your forelocks attitude in this country. Too many people. Like, think about it. How is it possible for someone like Nigel Farage or Boris Johnson or, for Christ's sake, Jacob Rees-Mogg to be seen as on the side of the common working man? How is that possible? How is it possible? Because we have this country that, it's like the Frost Report, that skit from years ago with like the two Ronnies and John Cleese. We have that looking up to people who've had you had a good education. Yeah, they were educated to be able to con you into thinking they had a good education. Shabana Mahmood lose a generation. I think she would be the riskiest indeed. She is actually sharp politically. I'll give her that. She's actually probably one of the sharpest politically. I would say maybe even the sharpest politically. I think Angela Rayner's quite sharp politically. I would say if we put her in as the 5, then I would say, in fact, I might have her. Hang on, have I got a thing? Hold on. I think I had a thing at one point. I might be able to find it again. Right, I did this ages ago when it first came up. So forget about the ones on the bottom. The ones on the top are the 5 possibly most likely. Rayner and Mahmood are probably the sharpest politically. Wes Streeting is very good in debates, but he also picks fights he shouldn't. Andy Burnham, you don't know what you get. He's like, he's changed his views on something. But this is what I mean about political honesty. You have to change with the times, which is inherently dishonest, right? Andy Burnham has recently been apologising for his attitude towards LGBTQ+, hasn't he, recently? Thornberry's okay, diplomatically direct. She's got the same problem as Wes Streeting. She picks too many fights with the wrong fights. There's this phrase that all teachers, all parents, and all politicians should know, which is pick your battles. Streeting and Thornberry do not pick their battles. But also Thornberry wouldn't have enough support. She didn't even have enough support to become deputy leader. So she doesn't have enough support in the party. Wes Streeting has a lot of support in the party. Rayner has a lot of support in the party. Mahmood, I don't think would have enough. And she's got all sorts of things going. She would easily be the riskiest. She is politically sharp, but she's in the wrong body probably. A British Asian woman where her natural, because she is herself quite conservative. It's not just that she is adopting conservative policies. She actually naturally is quite conservative. So she would naturally appeal to the sort of people who wouldn't even describe her as British, which is a bit of a problem. Ed Miliband, I don't know. He has gotten a lot better since he was last leader. But I do worry that with Ed Miliband, if he failed, you wouldn't half look stupid because it's like, well, he failed last time. Why did you give him another go? Say Starmer's destroyed Labour. Yes, of course he hasn't. He's won them power. He's implemented the biggest boost to workers' rights ever, which is literally the number one reason for the Labour Party existing, as well as a load of other stuff that I don't see people complaining about. He hasn't. Loads of other people are trying to destroy the Labour Party because of ego. They say if Wes Streeter gets in, I would vote tactically against Labour. For what reason? Al Cairns still being promoted as a future leader. See, the thing is, there will probably be a Kemi Badenoch in the mix. Like Kemi Badenoch, when she first stood, remember when Johnson stepped down, and she was promoted by Michael Gove and a few others. They knew she wouldn't win. They did it to give her They did it to give her a platform so she could become well known as a springboard for a future leadership bid, which they eventually won, right? So you're likely to get someone like that. There probably are some MPs in Labour who are impressing as a future leader and are not ready now, but there's likely to be some MPs push them forward so that they can introduce themselves to the wider membership. You say, I'm trans is by far the most dangerous politician for trans people, but we don't know that. We don't know that at all. Wes Streeton a few years ago was the most outspoken defender of trans rights in Labour. This is what I mean about him being so divisive. He was actually attacking the transphobes even within his own party. What changed? What changed was the health department's policy of blocking the banning the puberty blockers. At the time, we would have naturally thought that was a Wes Streeting policy, but we now know it's not. So what trans issue is Wes Streeting responsible for? I think a lot of people I'm not saying he's not transphobic, by the way. What I'm saying is you don't know he is, because his behaviour before Labour made a centralised decision to lean into transphobia, he was the most aggressive against transphobes of any Labour MP. So I would suggest you don't know. But the other thing I would say is this: if it's on trans issues, and I know it's a terrible thing to have to say, but it is, it's unfortunately the reality of politics. If Labour lose, Reform UK get in. What are they going to do to trans people? But what I'm saying is, and this is what I would say about any of the candidates, it's very difficult to know what their government would be like, other than they should all make sure they stick to the manifesto. They do. Changing the leader does not get you out of manifesto commitments, because that is a promise by the party, right? Beyond that, in terms of where because there's plenty of gaps in the manifesto, there's plenty of things you can adopt that's different. Beyond that, you don't really know what any of them would be like. You might imagine, you know that Ed Miliband's going to be super committed to the green energy revolution. You know that Andy Burnham will be committed to better public transport. At the same time, he won't be able to lead on that because that's sensibly being devolved, right? With a lot of the others, it's really difficult. Angela Rayner's going to be really hot on workers' rights because that is, something that is core to her. But all she can do, replacing Starmer, is make sure that it all gets implemented well. In terms of lots of their policy areas, you don't really know who they are because they've been towing party lines, because that's how you should behave in a organised political party. It'd be very difficult to really know who they are. So it can't be Rayner, surely, if tax stuff will just come up again and again. They try and bring it up again and again. But I think it's, as long as she's, in fact, I would actually suggest, because at the moment, of course, there's a HMRC investigation. If HMRC clear her, and I strongly suspect they're going to clear her, I think she'll be straight back into cabinet anyway. I don't think there'll be a long wait. And as long as she's cleared by HMRC, I really don't see what there is. The issue was so complicated, most people don't even know what the fuss was about. So I don't see that the tax issue is a big issue for Rayner. You may well find a similar skeleton in any of their closets. We don't know yet because the media haven't bothered to poke at them. Someone on B-Sky posted Reform UK's conference, which goes over their trans stance. Apparently, it's about they don't believe trans. Right, the core difference is this: officially, Labour believe trans people exist. It's not much of a bar, I know, but they believe trans people exist and that they are people. The Conservatives and Reform UK, they're now officially saying trans people don't actually exist. That is. Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage have made that crystal clear. While their parties are led by those two people, trans people, in their eyes, do not exist. So there will be no government provision for trans people under either of those governments, even if they form a coalition or a merger or something, unless the leadership changes, and the leadership of Reform UK is not going to change, so it's only the Conservatives who could. Unless that leadership changes, and change it to Robert Jenrick, by the way, won't help, then the next government, the government that replaces Labour at the moment, do not believe trans people even exist. So the government will do nothing for trans people. And that is, unfortunately, the fact of the matter. Do you mean there's recent energy Streeting was forced into his current position other than his previous attacks on transphobes, of course? Yes. As soon as the Supreme Court ruling came out, it was at that point clear that... See, what happened is, here's the timeline. So we're back in mid-2023. I forget exactly when it happened. Round about mid-2023. So Starmer, by this point, had 2 years of journalists going, what's a woman? What's a woman, Keir? What's a woman, Sir Keir? What's a woman, Mr. Starmer? And then all of a sudden, they were just going... They were sort of... they stopped trying to explain what a trans woman was. They gave up on it. I thought strategically, at that point, look, they're just sick of the questions and they know they've only got so much time. And if they keep having an argument with the journalist about what a woman is, they're not getting to talk about the NHS or housing or workers' rights or anything like that, right? Then we have, they win power. The first PMQs. First question is from Nadia Whittome, right? She's asking, will Starmer at least talk to this trans group about things? And he basically refuses and sets out a really trans dismissive position, should I say. Then we get the puberty blockers thing, which wasn't made explicitly clear in the manifesto, but it was ambiguous enough you could have gone either way with it. And then you start to think, well, Streeting's a bit transphobic here. But then you get the Supreme Court ruling. And then when it clearly doesn't offer clarity, Labour insists, thank you, it offers clarity now, this is brilliant. Oh yeah, we always thought, it was always our assumption that it only applied to what they call biological women. I don't like that term because what they actually mean is cis women. Remember, the brain is part of biology and trans women do have like brains that think like women, right? That's why they're trans women. Same with trans men and men's brains. In fact, a couple of trans men I know think more like men than most men. But anyway, the point is, at that point, and given that we knew who was calling a lot of the shots in 10 Downing Street, at that point it was quite clear that Labour, particularly when Starmer... Remember, the Supreme Court did not say that trans women can't use women's toilets. They did not say that, right? And nor had anyone else. And yet Starmer was saying that's what you should do. Starmer was basically saying that trans women shouldn't use women's toilets, right? At that point, it was clear that there was a central transphobic position in Downing Street, at which point it's also clear that it makes no difference what any individual Secretary of State thinks. They will have had to have baked in certain policies into their department that will have been given to them. So it might be that Streeting's transphobic and he was just... But again, I would ask myself, why was he attacking the transphobes? He didn't have to. Is it just because he likes attacking people who take a different view to the party line? Possible. It's possible. It's possible he's now more comfortable with Labour's position. But then what was last week all about? In Parliament last week, when he was again attacking transphobes. So I would say we don't know about Streeting, but we do know that it's come from Starmer's team, this idea of we need to lean into transphobia. And the reason they'll have done it is because the polling shows that the vast majority of people in this country are now transphobic. But my argument has always been that is true, but it's not a big deal for people because people don't really believe that who goes into the women's toilets is affecting their cost of living or the NHS or immigration, which are the things they care about. Should Starmer initiate some type of inquiry into Epstein and Maxwell in relation to potential criminality in the UK? Not until there's massive public demand for it, because it will implicate Trump, or it risks implicating Trump. The other problem with Maxwell, so you're talking about, okay, I know what you're saying. You're saying this is just purely for UK citizens who are implicated, but Ghislaine Maxwell is working out some sort of plea deal with Trump. So it doesn't help to attack her, and yet you'd have to. So what I would say about the Epstein file, I can't call the Trump files now, sorry, the Epstein files. What I would say about that, I am hopeful that the floodgates are open now. It may take some more years before we get everything. I don't know. It might be quick, it might be slow. I think we are going to get everything. I think things are going to come out. I think this is too big to stop now. And I think, like the Horizon post office scandal, I think there'll be a huge public outcry when some of this stuff comes out, when much more of it comes out. I think there'll be an absolute clamour to at least take action against Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and maybe any other British people who are implicated in them, which may not be that many. They may not, but there might be. So I think at that point, the government would lean into it. If Wes takes over without a contest, would it be Coronation Streeting? Get Mac out. That's a good one, that. In all honesty, though, that's what Labour would ideally have. They would ideally not have the contest go to the members for two reasons. The first of which is party members, it's not just Labour Party members, but party members in general, often try and vote for the candidate that most matches their politics without any consideration for who's going to win the election. When they voted for Starmer, they were voting not out of love for Starmer's politics, but because they were sick of losing. But we've now won. So when Labour haven't been losing time after time after time, they can usually be relied upon to vote for a really bad option. So I wouldn't trust the members to vote for the leader most likely to win the election. There's a good chance they'll vote for the one least likely, although that's not certain. But, there's a good chance of it. The second reason is, if it goes to the members, the leadership contest will last much longer. And while it's lasting, the economy, I wouldn't say free fall, that's over-egging it, but it will be in real trouble. Apart from anything else like, how can Rachel Reeves calm the markets down when they all know she's going to be losing her job as soon as the new leader's in place? And how will Reeves be able to do anything? Everything in government will stop, particularly in the Treasury. Because with a new leader, you expect a new direction with the Treasury as well. So the longer it goes on, the worse it will be. Still find it amusing with the Epstein files. The only people that have faced justice are British. Ghislaine Maxwell, yes, that's true. Andrew and Peter Mandelson. Well, Mandelson has not necessarily done anything criminal. He has backed Epstein even when he knew that Epstein was a criminal. That's him. So Peter Mandelson, all we know of Peter Mandelson is that he showed insufficient regard for the victims. He didn't give a shit about the victims. So heartless, but not necessarily criminal. Andrew, almost certainly criminal. He hasn't faced justice. I don't think having his princedom taken off of him is justice. He's still living a life of luxury. From his point of view, he might have been punished because he's no longer the big I am, right? But he's still living a life of luxury. By our standards, he's not really faced justice, has he? He should be put in prison. He should be tried. He should be properly investigated. There should be a full criminal investigation once because we need the evidence from America. We need the Americans to give us the evidence, right? But once we've got that, there should be a full criminal investigation. Party members gave us trust and confidence. Well, everyone. Party members, almost every leader of Labour and the Conservatives, since members have been voting for them, has been terrible. Almost every single one. Boris Johnson won an election for them. Keir Starmer won an election for Labour. That's basically it. Remind me why Reeves has to go with Starmer. Because they will, first of all, the Chancellor has to be someone who's very much on the economic wavelength with the Prime Minister, otherwise the government will fail. So if someone replaces Starmer, the person who wins will have to promise the members that there's going to be a fundamental change in ultimately economic policy. I don't think they're going to win by saying economically I'm going to do exactly the same. but socially I'll be a bit different. They could, but I don't think they will. So, and the other thing is, just politics being what it is, the Chancellor's the second most powerful member of government. So offering the Chancellor position is a really good way to get lots of support to become leader. You know, don't be naive about this. Whoever wants to become the next leader will do deals with other powerful people in the party so that they don't split the vote amongst the same tribe. So it's very possible that whoever replaces him, if he indeed is replaced, has to promise someone a big job in order. A bit like, remember, Tony Blair offered Gordon Brown not just that he would be Chancellor, but that he would be Chancellor without any interference in the Treasury. That was the price for Gordon Brown not standing against him. And it's not uncommon to do deals for some of the top jobs, for a big hitter to back you instead of running against you. Prince Andrew should be prosecuted. There needs to be an investigation of the role of the UK police. They must have known about his behaviour and covered it up. There's good reason to suppose they may well have been. And you're right, at some point there may well have to be an inquiry into that as well. I think the first job will have to be, though, trying to bring the actual abusers themselves to justice. That's got to be the priority. Abolish the monarchy. It's got nothing to do with the monarchy. It's got nothing to do with the monarchy at all. If there were no monarchy, Andrew would still have belonged to a very wealthy family. He would have still been, he could still have become friends with Epstein. The same thing could have happened. It's got nothing to do with the monarchy. Andrew could have made things so much better had he sat in that interview, looked the interview in the eye and said, I should never have become involved with Epstein. Yes. It wouldn't have stopped what's coming out, though. Because at the end of the day, right, there are two types of people that were too close to Epstein. There were the types that were just genuinely socially close to him, friends with him, and then when he was convicted, still backed him because they were friends, right? And then there's the other type that actively engaged in the abuse as well. They themselves criminally abused these women and young girls. Andrew is in that second category. And so, although, yes, that interview was absolutely a PR disaster, nonetheless, because he was an abuser, not just someone called... Like, Peter Mandelson should have dropped Epstein when he was convicted. Or at the very least, openly said this. Well, no, he should have just dropped him. He should have just said... He should have just used some political instincts and says, I can't be associated with you. That's what he should have done. And then he would have been fine because we have absolutely zero evidence he did anything criminal or knew about the criminal behaviour. But it wouldn't have worked for Andrew. I mean, again, that interview was a disaster. But, yeah. I don't care who replaces Starmer as long as they keep Reform UK out. No, same for me. I have no personal loyalty to any politician, any at all. As far as I'm concerned, everyone in Labour, every backbencher, chair of a select committee, minister, cabinet minister, leader, right? They all have one job, which is to win power from opposition and then stay in power. And if they can't stay in power, to make sure that the electoral system does not bring in the worst choice to replace them. That's their job as far as I'm concerned. And as far as I'm concerned, even though the best outcome for Labour is Starmer doesn't go, but he gets better advice, because he's willfully refusing to change his advisors, I wouldn't actually blame Labour MPs for getting rid of him. Even if it doesn't work out. You know, let's say they end up getting someone who doesn't win the next election, and let's say we can have some good reason to suppose that the members actually someone just chose the wrong one, they got the wrong person. Even in that scenario, I still would find it difficult to blame them for getting rid of Starmer, because at the moment Starmer, it's like he's trying. It's not he's trying to lose the election, that's silly, but he is. He's risking it. It, I don't want a prime minister to be too risk averse, but have a healthy relationship with risk. Went to Pizza Express the other day. It was awful. No wonder it made him sweat so much. Is Pizza Express even still open? Because they didn't get the best PR out of it either. Mandelson's such a snake. Yeah, a lot of politicians are, though. A lot of the best politicians sort of are, which is why I sort of go along my line of that. Despite what I say about Andy Burnham, he could still be the best choice. My best pal, yes, when he was providing you with young boys and more money for your art camps, we don't know that. We don't know that Peter Mandelson did anything criminal. There's not even a hint of it. There's not even allegations of that. Happy Christmas all. Love the Christmas jumper. Well, thank you. Someone called it a terrible jumper earlier. It is quite. It's too big for me now. It's from before, but still. Generally, a two-part process. Keep Reform UK out. Put pressure on Labour to correct things. Yes. You always need to do that, but you have to do it in the right way. Asking Labour or demanding Labour do impossible things or politically unwise things doesn't help. What's going through Starmer's head deferring to that idiot McSweeney? All I can conclude is that Starmer knows he himself does not have political instincts. There's a lot of things about Starmer that are quite laudable. He has that level of self-awareness. That represents a lack of ego. No political leader with an ego would defer to someone else's political judgment. Trump doesn't defer to other people's political judgment. Jeremy Corbyn doesn't. Boris Johnson doesn't. Right? Rishi Sunak didn't. Kemi Badnoch isn't. Right? If you've got an ego, you think, because everyone thinks politics is easy, right? Everyone thinks they'd be brilliant as a prime minister. It takes ego prevents you realizing that you have limits. An ego doesn't let you think, oh, I'm shit at that. Right? Particularly if it's part of your job. But unless you recognise that you're shit at something, you won't account for it. So, but Starmer, and you can't just say, well, he should have learnt political instinct. It takes too long, right? But he just farmed it out to the wrong person. In theory, there's nothing wrong with what Starmer did. He recognises he doesn't have political instincts, so he defers to someone whose political instincts are good. The problem is he's deferred to someone whose campaign skills are good, but political skills are shocking. The problem is, I think Starmer realises it now, but I just think he thinks he's in too deep. I think it's a Lady Macbeth thing. I think Starmer's Lady Macbeth, basically. Is it time to ditch first past the post and introduce PR rank vote in order to keep extremist like reform taking 100%? We can't bring in any form of PR for the next election. It is long past time we got rid of first past the post. It's always been unfair, but it now doesn't work. It cannot function. Like in America, their system still functions. It's not fair. The unfairness is baked into the American system, but it does function. Whereas in this country, it used to function, so it's an unfair, but it's functional. Now it's not even functional. The situation, if we look at the polling right now, I keep pointing out, you cannot judge polling several years out from an election. It will change a lot. Mid-term, people's voting intention doesn't actually reflect how they will actually vote, because they're just saying how they would like to vote in an ideal world. When you get to an election, there are still some people who try and vote ideologically, but there are other people who vote pragmatically, right? So we don't know how it would. And that means people will tend to align down one or other of the likely winners, right? So the polls will not be like this at the next election. But let's say they were. Let's say they were. You've got Reform UK on 25, the Greens on 15, Lib Dems on 15, Labour on 20, Conservatives on 19. that would be a very messy parliament. It might not even be possible to form a coalition. It's not just that, oh, well, you're going to have a hung parliament, you have to have a coalition. It might be that there is no coalition possible. That's the structural problem. Whereas, if you were to look at this through different eyes at the moment, you could say that if it were possible for the Greens, actually even then, no, it'd be really messy. Do you know what? These figures are actually a mess under any system. I was going to say under like proportional representation, you might look at it and you go, okay, could there be a coalition emerge? I can't imagine that Plaid or the SNP would want to work in coalition. They might support a government in alliance, but not in coalition. So you're really talking Labour, Lib Dems and the Greens as a possible. But even that only adds up at the moment to 50%. But I think at the next election it could be, but that's 50%. I mean, it's like, that's not a strong government. And there would be fights. A three-way coalition will always produce fights. And given that the Green Party are not, like if you look at their voters are, the Green, one thing, they won't like this, but there's one thing that the Green Party voters and Reform Party voters have in common, and that both of them are very ideal. They're the most ideological of the supporters of those parties. Completely different ideology, but nonetheless, they're very ideological, not pragmatic. Well, if you're going to serve in a government, a coalition government, you have to be pragmatic. So there's no progressive government there. But then if you look at the Conservatives and Reform UK, that adds up to even less. That's 44%. There's no government there. Labour, the Lib Dems and the Greens could try, but it would fall apart. It would fall apart. They'd get almost nothing done. Even if it didn't fall apart, because there'd be too much wrangling, legislation would take too long to agree on. You'd get almost nothing done. Budgets would take too long to agree on. You'd get almost nothing done. You would fail. And at the next election, you'd be booted out, and then God knows what. So at the moment, we've got a real problem. But if we had a transferable vote system, which is possible before the next election, it would at least stop Reform UK. Because at the moment, Reform UK probably can't get 100% of the power with 25% of the vote. It's not impossible, though. And of course, we don't know where your party is in all this. They haven't yet included your party in these polls. At some point, presumably they will do. They say Labour's not failed, they just match up to the high standards of the left. Yeah, they haven't. I mean, again, I don't understand these people who, like, what's wrong with the workers' rights? What's wrong with the extra housing? What's wrong with the extra money for the NHS? What's wrong with, transferring to clean, secure energy so we're not reliant on fossil fuels? What's wrong with boosting public sector pay and minimum wage and pensions above the level of inflation? Like, there is no failure there. It is just that there are some people who just want everything to the nth degree. It's like, no, this is the perfect system and we demand perfection, even though their ideas provably don't work. But they ignore details like that. You say Labour, Lib Dems and Tories coalition in the centre? No. Labour and the Tories will never form a coalition. Ever. There was that time in the 1930s, which was really weird times, but the Labour Party was still forming then. It's impossible. And the Conservatives, because regardless of what you think about some in Labour being very centrist and some in the Conservatives being very centrist, nonetheless, Labour is always centre-left and the Conservatives are always right. I would say I've said centre-right at one point, but now it's right-wing or centre-right, but they're definitely right. They're fundamentally incompatible. You've got one party who wants to wreck the NHS. They don't want to admit to it, but they do want to wreck the NHS. They're not going to support public funding of the NHS. They might have supported the PFI in a coalition, but they wouldn't have supported the current system. They wouldn't support nationalisation. They wouldn't support boosting welfare above the level of inflation. They wouldn't support boosting public sector pay. And they might with benefits. Even the Tories sometimes have to accept that if you don't keep benefits in line with at least the level at which people can survive, that you are going to you are going to create problems. So even the Tories can sometimes boost benefits payments above the level of inflation. They have done that. But they generally don't like to do the same. And sometimes the minimum wage. They don't generally like to do that with public sector pay. They like that to go down in real terms. But anyway, it is what it is. If they don't do anything with the voting system and lose power to reform, I'll be very angry. Well, so will I. Because I don't know how angry I will be. Because it's one of those things. The only way now to change, they didn't put it in the manifesto. And at the time, although I said I wanted them to, I also understood strategically. I did say at the time, I'm going to be perfectly honest about it. I said, if I were paid to advise Labour, I would not have advised them to put it in the manifesto last time. And the reason for that is, you wouldn't have imagined at the time that Reform UK would be capable of winning enough MPs to win power. Now, they still might not. They're not going to on this level of polling. So if they have peaked, and I'm not one of the ones who's saying they have, because that's a mug's game. But if they have, we might end up with a very messy parliament next time. But Reform UK will not have free reign of it. But it is possible for Reform UK and the Conservatives to form a government. How likely that is, I don't know, but it is possible. So I am wary of that. You know, but so the only way to change the electoral system now, AV is the only way you could do it. Anything more, because it's too complex, anything else is more complicated. Whereas AV isn't, it's really easy. It's the same thing. It's the same ballot papers even. Everything's the same constituencies, same. Instead of putting a cross in a box, you put a 1, 2 and a 3. That's it. But you would need a public mandate for it. So you'd need a referendum. The referendum could lose. But I would suggest that given that trust in politics is quite low, people might like a change to the system. It's like Brexit, isn't it? It's like because, in fact, Labour at that point could be the anti-establishment, couldn't they? Anti-establishmentarianism is doing quite well, right? Do you know what? I don't think I've ever used that word properly before. Anti-establishmentarianism. It used to be the case. I don't think it's the case anymore. When I was young, it was like disestablishmentarianism is the longest word in the English language. I'm not sure it is anymore, but it was. But anti-establishmentarianism, I don't think I've ever used it before. But anyway, they could be the anti-establishmentarianism party, because they would be saying mainstream politics is broken. We recognise that. Let's change the system. So I think they might be able to win a referendum on it, but that's what they'd have to do. There's no other way of getting a public mandate. What I would say, though, is if they don't do that, and they may believe they wouldn't win the referendum, I will be angry with them if they don't put it in the next manifesto, because I don't think they can bank on winning the following election. So I think they need to put electoral reform in the next manifesto, as well as customs union. If Reform don't win, will Farage step down? I see no reason why he would, unless he also loses his seat as an MP. He will be getting on a bit, but I think there's. Do you know what? I'm still not sure. I now think he probably does want to become Prime Minister, but I reckon originally his plan was just to pretend he can be, and he would be great as Prime Minister. But oh shame, the system stops me doing it. Right. I think he would. I think he'd be more than happy to carry on as an MP. He might even be leader of the opposition if he doesn't win. Although, if he wins enough seats to be leader of the opposition, that would probably suggest that we're still in hung parliament territory, because I don't think Reform UK can win enough seats. It's not impossible, by the way, but when I look at various scenarios, it's quite difficult to imagine a scenario where Labour win a majority and Reform UK are the second biggest party. But at some point you would think Farage will want to retire, but if he still thinks he can have a nice life grifting millions, then why would he? It's not like he has to do his job as an MP. It's not like he does do his job as an MP. Do I think Leanderthal will hold his seat? I suspect he probably would, yeah. It's quite gammon there. Again, we'll see what happens to people's attitudes to Labour and people's attitudes to Reform UK in the next few years. But at the moment, you would think Lee Anderson's probably fairly safe. He can't believe his luck. Cannot believe his luck. He went from being poor, genuine working class poor, to getting loads of money by his standards for abusing people. He gets paid a lot of money to abuse people, to shit on people. He's loving it. If you think Labour will lose by 2034, you're in the wrong job. I don't think I'm not saying I think they will lose. I think it's quite likely. Because I just think there are too many. Like Labour last time won 3 on the bounce, mostly because the Tories remained awful throughout all of those elections. Remember, even Blair didn't win that much of the share of the vote on the third outing, not much more than the Conservatives. It was just better focused. The Conservatives were still really disorganised. But the other thing is, because the problem is, every time you make something better, you get diminishing returns at the next election. Remember, it's not normal to have governments in place for like multiple sessions. We used to just change our government every couple of elections or so. The only reason the Conservatives have won these massive elections is because usually it's Labour that when they lose an election, they go to pieces for years. You know, when Labour lost in 1979, they completely went to pieces. When they lost in 2010, they went completely to pieces. They don't bounce back. There's no resilience within Labour. Labour never seem to think to themselves when they lose an election, right, okay, let's work out what we did well because we didn't get everything wrong, and then let's work out where we did go wrong and fix that. They never just fix it. It's like, oh, smash it to bits. It's like my dad, right? When my dad got his first PC, desktop computer, right, I set it up for him, right? Unfortunately, I carelessly showed him how to format the hard drive. So anyway, but I set it up for him, but then he was installing this is back in the days of floppy disks, right? He was installing some programs. Every time it did something he didn't like, he would just format the hard drive and start again from scratch. That's what Labour are like. Every time they lose an election, they have to start from scratch again. Instead of just going, should we just fix what went? Should we just have a debrief? Take our time. Don't panic about anything. Have a bit of a debrief and then think about what went wrong and put it right. They never do that. They just panic. They think, smash it all up with a hammer, start again. Like they like literally try and create a brand new party from scratch every time. Mental. Need a referendum on mental health in this country. We do. We sort of already have one. It's just too big a problem, isn't it, to do all at once because we don't really have any. Whereas Labour, if you look at the manifesto, there is actually a lot of provision for building up mental health, specifically for young people. So it's like they're starting with young people. There's quite a lot of stuff in the manifesto, as long as they actually get it done, by the way. I don't actually know what the progress on it is. I might have to check it out. But they do actually have a good one there. Why did I show him how to format the hard drive? Because I didn't think that at 2 o'clock in the morning, he'd wake me up to tell me he's done it again, right? I learnt my lesson, but it was too late. The genie was out the bottle. Do I think Rory Stewart was too harsh on Zach Plansky the other way? There's no such thing as being too harsh on a political leader. There can be such a thing as being unfair, but there's no such thing as being too harsh. No such thing at all. If you can't take the heat of an interview with someone who's, not got a particular agenda to grind, sorry, mixing my metaphors there. If you can't take that, then how are you actually going to function when you're in the real crucible of a general election campaign? Or, because he reckons he wants to be in government, if you're in government. But anyway, last couple, because we're sort of running out of time. To be honest, to be fair, back then I used to do an annual reinstall of Windows 9X because it literally fell apart and ground to a halt after a while. But there we go. Was Stuart reasonably fair? I mean, in terms of his own self, he didn't bring him on just to try and do an assassination of it. So in terms of his own sense of it, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what's not. Like, Zach Polanski, if you look at the interviews he's done, he's only really doing ones where the people tell him how great he is. He hasn't. That's the first time he's ever done one where someone said to him, "You seem to be talking shit, mate," or anything like it. What do I think of TLDR News? I don't really watch them these days, but I don't imagine they've changed. They're a decent enough channel. Their aim is to be scrupulous. I mean, they basically bill themselves as objective explainers. But I haven't watched anything recently. But they always used to be fine. I don't see any reason why they still wouldn't be. Again, the question always is not whether someone who does something on social media or anywhere else is getting everything right. No one gets everything right. It's, are they trying to get it right? Are they trying to inform people? And some people are and some people aren't. So it's not Zach couldn't take the heat. It's Stuart engaged in bad faith. I'm not sure he did. I'm not sure he did at all. In fact, Zach Polanski, I said, right, with Rishi Sunak, when Rishi Sunak was avoiding journalists who would ask him tough questions, I actually said at the time, he should actively be going out and engaging with people who will ask him very difficult questions, because then he'll learn. Because if he only lets journalists who give him an easy time ask him questions, then when it comes to the general election campaign where he loses a lot of control over that, he'll not have built up any skills. The same I will say of Zach Polanski. If he can't take on that sort of questioning, he's toast in the general election, which is a good thing, by the way, because as I say, without having any sort of axe to grind against the Green Party in terms of what they are handmaidens to Reform UK, whether they want to be or not. I mean, I would be perfectly happy for the electoral system to change. I call for it all the time, and then it's not an issue. But at the moment, the electoral system we have, it is an issue. It's a massive issue. But anyway, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks for coming, everyone. I've got to go and start getting tea ready now. Have a very nice Christmas, and until next time, I'll see you later.